Exomologiste tokirio te agathos alleluia.
Otis ton neona to eleos aftu alleluia.
Jesus! Now, folks, every time I go, who is the King of Kings? What do you say?
Jesus!
Who is the Lord of Lords?
Jesus!
Who is God in heaven?
Jesus!
Who is God on earth?
Jesus!
Who died on the cross?
Jesus!
Who then rose again?
Jesus!
Who's now in heaven?
Jesus!
Who wants to bring you home?
Jesus!
Who is waiting for you and me?
Jesus!
What's his name?
Jesus!
Can't hear you.
Jesus!
Jesus! Now, we are Christians, and we are here today because we want every one of you to come back to Jesus Christ. I think that's pretty obvious. And I've got a special friend here, all the way from Australia. What's your name?
Robert.
Robert? That's it, just Robert, huh?
Yes.
I'm going to call
Rob, Bob.
I'm going to call you Rob Bob. Here we go. Rob, all the way from Australia.
Right.
You've come here to talk about Islam, haven't you?
Yes.
Can you have someone else hold that? Let's put that flag out of our face, please. Thanks a lot. I love India. That's my country. I'm from India. Jai Hind Zindabad. Ab Hindustani Janta.
Jesus in the
Ab Hindustani Janta.
Hindustani.
Ah, Janta ye mat hai. Okay, let's go ahead.
Who are you, Jay Smith?
I'm Jay Smith, yeah.
You're not Ben Stokes.
Hello, look at me. Do I look like Ben Stokes?
You look a bit like Ben.
Come on, I look nothing like Ben
look a
Stokes.
bit like
Nor
Ben
do I do what he does. Nor do I care about him. I care about Jesus. You care about Jesus.
I do.
They all care about Jesus, don't they? They want to know about Jesus, don't they?
Indeed.
But there is a problem, isn't there?
Really?
There is one religion that's standing against Jesus. Islam is standing against Jesus, is it not?
Yes.
And there's a lot in this book here, the Quran, that is against Jesus, is it not?
Yes.
It actually talks about him quite a bit, doesn't it?
Ironically,
And what does it say, Rob? What does it say, this book, about Jesus?
it says that he's not the Son of God. It says that he's a slave of Allah. It says that whatever he does with respect to the Bible, completely antithetical. We are not the children of God. He did not come to save us. He did not atone for our sins.
So hold on, everything you've said goes against Jesus, doesn't it? Explain why that goes against Jesus.
Because our salvation is dependent on whether we can see God in glory or not. And it requires the second person of the Trinity to incarnate.
Hold on, that's a big word.
Okay.
No one understands what you've just said. Did you understand what he just said? What do you mean, second person of the Trinity? That's a mouthful.
All right, all right. So, in the Trinity model, that the way God reveals himself throughout the Old Testament, there's an emergence of a more complex role of God.
Someone hold this on him. Yeah. Because you're only showing me, you're not showing you.
Okay. And, okay, I'll talk to you.
Please talk to me. No, talk to them. I'm not important. Talk to them.
Okay.
Good day.
So you have God slowly demonstrating his salvation grace. Galatians 3, Paul says that the gospel was given to Abraham. We see that develop through time. We see God engage cultures and languages. He's the same God. He's not stuck in any particular language or culture. He's not intimidated by the gods of the nations. But there's going to come a time when he's going to become one of us, to have koinonia, fellowship.
Hold on a minute. God becoming one of us. Do any of you believe that? Can omnipotent God become man? Hold on, he's no longer omnipotent, right? I've got a problem with that. Help me here. They've got a problem with that. Help me here. What do you mean, Rob? God, omnipotent God, becoming finite. That's an oxymoron right there.
Not with the common Christian hymn in Philippians 2.
Watch your flag, sir. Sir, watch your flag. We got the Indian flag, my flag from home. I love the Indian flag, but not for
I'm
day.
from Hyderabad. It's all good.
You're from we're both from India.
Yeah.
Two Indians here. We're both Indians.
What Jay is asking is the Trinity ulta pulta?
Ulta pulta. There you go. That proves he's from India. That means all mixed up. Everything is all mixed up, right?
Just have it facing all that.
Don't worry, we'll cut this out.
yeah.
Right, so, Rob, that's ulta pulta is an Indian word, means
Upside
all
down,
over the
all
place.
over the place. Yes.
So you're saying it's ulta pulta.
According to the Muslims.
Yes, according to most people.
It's not ulta pulta according to what we see in the Bible and its theology. So, let's, for example, look at Philippians 2, the Common Christi, a beautiful hymn from verse 5 down to around 11. It's all about the humility, how to model humility. That's the context of the incarnation.
Sir, don't put up that flag, please. Not today. Just today, don't.
Why?
I don't mind you doing it over there, but
You don't want my Israel.
I don't want it. I don't want this to be political today.
It's not political.
It is political. I'd rather you wouldn't do that, sir.
No, I'm here.
Okay, you can do it, but don't put it in our face.
I won't put it in your face.
All right, go ahead.
All right.
The flag of Israel.
So, notice that we have a model of how God's going to demonstrate his salvation in this creed. It says in verse 5, although he was in the form of God, there you go, he's already at that status.
Are you following him? So here is God who takes on a form.
Although he was already
God. He has always been God, right? But if he has always been God, can he do anything he wants?
And that's the next part.
Aha, I'm jumping ahead, evidently.
The next part is, notice you have the Father and the Son in this model as having equality. So although he's in the form of God, he did not consider this equality something to steal or snatch or grasp or
To take away.
To take away.
That's right.
Which, ironically, finite divine creatures like Satan wants to do that. But the Son is already at that highest level that you can ever be, so it's illogical to go above it. So, the only direction he can go is down.
Aha.
And just like Allah descends down the throne, right?
Allah does not descend down.
Does he not?
Allah has never come to earth.
Doesn't it say in the
No,
surah?
Allah is incapable of coming to earth.
It says.
So what does that tell you about Allah right there? Is Allah anywhere equal to our God?
No.
Already, our God can come to earth.
Yes.
Allah cannot come to earth. Who's got the greater God? Jesus! Already you've just shown us a great point. Next one, go ahead.
So he comes down, empties himself, becomes one of us, in order for us to experience what the early church called theosis, so we can see the Father's face. For the first time, us as a family of God, as creatures, initially a creation,
Right.
we would be the first creation to see the Father's face for the first time in the resurrection. No other creature has seen the Father's face except the Son. That's the point of the Christian gospel.
There's the incarnation. That's the point of the gospel.
Oh, glory.
All right, so you've just given the gospel message.
Yes.
These people have all heard it, but you've got a problem still, don't you?
I still have a problem.
You've got a problem with this book right here.
Yes, I do.
Because this book does not agree with everything you've just said.
No, it does not.
This book contradicts everything you've just said.
Yes, it does.
This book attacks everything you've just said.
Yeah. Yes.
This book is your problem.
Yes.
You've got a difficulty, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So give me some ideas. Show these good people. What is it about this book, the Quran, that you don't like?
Well, as a Christian, and also working in the field of science myself, Christian Europe is dependent on models.
You're a scientist.
Yes. Well,
Whoa.
I'm about to enter a PhD program in astronomy. So,
Yay. Okay, folks, he's an astronomist. Astronomist?
astrophysicist.
Astrophysicist. That's such a big mouthful, I can't even pronounce it. I honor you. I have no idea what you're going to talk about next.
I can talk about Banach-Tarski paradoxes and black holes.
Exactly,
all
you're
day.
talking Greek.
Yes.
So you're a very knowledgeable man, is what you're saying.
But I don't want to boast about it. So.
That's all right. Nonetheless, as a knowledgeable man,
Yeah.
you have looked at the Quran
Yeah,
and you find it wanting.
And exactly, the model of salvation is wanting. And here's how. When we look at the Bible, when we look at that grand history of salvation as I described, from Adam all the way to Jesus, the salvation plan for the incarnation. When you take snapshots of all the people's resumes from Adam to Jesus, things happen to them, right? Now, the Quran...
Things happen to these people.
Right.
These are prophets. These are men of God.
Whether they're prophets, men of God, the point is that historical circumstances, for example, Moses with the Exodus, Daniel in Babylon, then scholars and academics go and investigate these stories to see the whether it's true, false, maybe in between, maybe something gray.
That's the scientific method.
That's the scientific
As a
method.
scientist, you're very.
And that's always been my approach.
You've
with the
always
Bible.
taken that approach.
Right.
So you look for evidence.
Yes.
You look that there is commonality.
Yes.
You looked at that man doing that thing at that place at that
Yes.
time. Makes sense.
Yes.
You're saying that this must have happened, it could have happened.
Yes.
We don't have all the evidence, but
Yes.
sometime we may have the
And
evidence.
just like in science, no model is complete. For example, Newtonian mechanics is technically very valid. It's like in the high 90% bracket when you're talking about large-scale structures of, say, physics in the universe. It's only when you're talking about high speeds and so on, you need Einstein's relativity. And
Right,
other
right.
things. So,
You're starting to lose me.
okay, the point is...
I'm a simple man.
The point is-
I know ABC, I know 1, 2, 3. Please don't go beyond that when you get to science.
The point is, if you have a model that is corrosive, like the more data that you add to it that corrodes the model is faulty.
Right.
But if the model grows ever so slightly,
Right.
say for example, geocentrism once upon a time becomes heliocentrism. Geocentrism is on the right track. It doesn't mean it's false.
Are you following him?
I'm trying. So,
No, people, just beware. He is being mic'd up. So this is all going on film. So thousands upon hundreds of thousands are going to see it online. Really, we have to be careful that we say that they hear him. All right. So here we go. Back to, I don't even know how to say it. Centrism or whatever you were talking about.
so Earth-based measurements,
Measurements,
assuming that the Earth is the center of the solar system,
center of solar system.
the math still works.
Math still works.
But if you went to the moon,
Moon.
geocentrism won't work.
Geocentrism doesn't work.
You need a sun-focused or centered math system
Right.
for navigation.
Navigation,
and
the
so
solar,
on.
yeah.
But the point is, the math expands the model more and more. It's in the right direction.
Okay.
Now let's apply that to the Quran.
Okay.
So, was Adam in heaven with Iblis frustrating? The answer is no.
No. I've never heard this story.
It's
Oh,
in-
that's in the Quran,
it's in
right?
the Quran.
But it's not in my Bible.
No.
Wait a minute. If it's not in my Bible, I don't really care then, do I?
No, I'm showing here the corrosion of the model.
There's the corrosion.
Yes.
You're already corroding me.
You already have Adam on earth in the Bible.
He's always on earth.
with 4 designated rivers that we can
Geographically
geographically
locate.
locate.
No, we can't because they've changed over the centuries. But
No.
nonetheless,
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue
Okay.
that because it may not be the same
It's
settlers.
in the Persian Gulf, the Tigris-Euphrates. We've done ground-penetrating radar to know the Pishon, Gihon rivers.
I'm not going to argue with you. You know too much. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just say you're correct. Okay.
Yes.
He's correct. We'll argue. Let's say you're correct.
Okay, but Adam is in heaven
Right.
with Iblis.
No, he's not.
No?
No, he's not.
Iblis is not told to
Adam is not in heaven. I'm sorry, but that's not the story that I know.
in the Quran.
Bye. Or now you're going back to that book again.
No, I'm discussing the Quran.
Okay, in the Quran, he's in heaven.
Yes.
I have a problem with that. You have a problem
I have
with
a
that.
problem with that.
Okay, go ahead. What's the
Yeah,
problem
so
there?
The problem is, where in history did anyone talk about an Iblis rebelling? against-
Explain who Iblis is.
Iblis is Satan.
Okay, are you following? So Satan and Adam are in heaven.
Yes.
Do you believe that? No. But the Quran does. And that's what's bothering him.
Book, sir.
You don't like the Quran for saying that.
I don't like the Quran for saying that. And
Okay.
here's why.
All right?
As a model, look for the data. The only location I can find that story is in a late 1st century pseudepigraphical legend story called The Life of Adam and Eve. Because Jews wanted to expand more like a midrash, certain legends and tales. And ironically, when you read that story, there's actually a discussion that Adam and Satan have after the fact. They're having like a buddy chat, like they're having literally like coffee, where Adam's like, yeah, you really did a number over there. And Satan's like, well, you know, I was told to worship you, but I shouldn't be worshiping you. And they're having this sort of this buddy conversation.
So this comes from another story.
Yes.
And that
Not from
story,
Genesis.
you know who wrote it,
We don't know who wrote it.
but you know when it was written.
Yes. Very
And it's in the
definitely.
1st century.
Late 1st century CE.
Well, I say AD if you don't
A-
mind.
AD.
I'm an AD guy.
All right, AD.
Addo Domino.
Okay.
So 1st century AD,
yes.
after Christ.
Yes.
After Christ.
Yes.
So it's not in the Old Testament time.
Not in the Old
It's
Testament.
actually after Christ.
No one spoke about it.
We're talking about 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
And this is a story that's well known. in that part of the world.
In what we call Second Temple discourse, where it was rife with legends and myths and so on that Jesus had to counter. How ironic.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Is that,
When Jesus comes on the scene, he's having to deal with the various Jewish factions and groups that they themselves make up all these myths.
And it's right here in the Quran.
Right there in the Quran.
Are you already seeing that this is a story that's been borrowed?
Yeah.
We know when it was written.
I want to share one more.
Go ahead,
How
goes.
many can I share?
You can share 5, 6, 7 because
All
I've
right.
got about another 10
Here's
to
another
add.
one. Here's another one. The Quran mentions that when Noah's flood happens, that the earth boils the water like an oven, and then the water gushes forth up. All right?
Right.
Now that's not in the Bible. It just
No, it's
says-
not in my Bible.
It just says the great deep and the apertures of heaven open, and then the water comes up. But what I'm curious about, as a scientist, is the phrase oven. There's a Syriac legend that predates the Quran that is supposedly attributed to Hippolytus of Rome. That basically it's a depiction of Noah's wife baking bread in this oven, and then water starts to curdle up and boil through the oven, and she goes and runs to Noah saying, "The flood has started." There's only 2 places in, again, that AD period between the first 5 or 6 centuries before the Quran's origin that has specifically that details. Oven, boiling, water, Noah, flood.
And you know who it is. Who wrote it?
It's attributed to Hippolytus of Rome.
When was it written?
Around the 3rd, 4th centuries AD.
Where was he living?
No. So Hippolytus is in the 2nd, 3rd century, but this story comes a little bit later in Syriac sources, attributing it to Hippolytus.
Hippolytus, okay. And we know that the Quran, the Arabic from the Quran comes from Syriac.
Exactly.
So-
And I'm not making this up. A paper was published in an Oxford journal literally last year on this. He translated this untranslated text, the Syriac text. It was published just last year. It's a new study that's just come out focusing on that detail.
Let's look at a few others. You ready?
All right. My favorite is Abraham in the fire.
Abraham in the fire. That's
Yes.
chapter 21 of the Quran.
Right, and a few other places as well.
Before he gets in the fire, he goes into the Masjid al-Haram.
Right.
What does that mean in Arabic?
The
Forbidden place of bowing.
Okay.
Forbidden place of bowing is what it means in Arabic.
I'm thinking about Urfa, where there's a whole like a cave of Abraham, and where he's born and where he's saved. And
I'm talking about the Masjid al-Haram because it predates what you're saying.
okay.
So if you look at the beginning of the story,
Yeah.
he goes into Masjid al-Haram, he takes a large idol and destroys all the smaller
And
idols.
puts the axe in the biggest idol's hand.
That's right.
Yeah.
The next morning when the people wake up, they see the broken
He
idols.
asks
Who did it?
Yes.
Ask the idol, right?
Now what's interesting is, this is before he's called Abraham in the Bible, right? Like not that story is in the Bible, but he's called Abram in the Bible before the covenant declaration Abraham.
So it should be Abram is what he should be
Abram.
called in the Quran.
Right.
Because this predates that, if it really happened.
Right. But one of the people.
First of all, where is the Masjid al-Haram?
do you know?
It's in Mecca.
Oh,
Was Abraham ever in Mecca, folks? No. Did Abraham ever go to Mecca? No. Did he ever go into the Masjid al-Haram? No. Did he rebuild it? No. Did he break idols there? No. So can you see point after point after point, you've got a problem. Because where did Abraham live?
in Ur of the Chaldeans,
Well, but after that, where did he live?
Canaan, and then Egypt.
And then Canaan. How far north is Canaan from Mecca? Try 1,000 miles.
Okay.
He was 1,000 miles further north. So he can't have been in both places at once, right?
No.
So there's a problem geographical as well, as far as
But
historical.
I want to talk about how. Okay, here's.
So he comes out, they grab him, and they put him into a fire then.
Right.
All right?
Now they actually ask for, where's that Abraham
Oh,
in
wait
the
a
Quran?
minute. How could it be Abraham if he hasn't been made Abraham yet?
Exactly.
Okay, so
that's one more
that's a
detail.
historical textual problem.
Right. And then I'm going to showcase now. Allah has no idea or understanding between the difference of Akkadian and Hebrew. So, Ur is what we call a cognate loan word from Akkadian. You have variations in Akkadian, Ura, Urfu, Uru. So, Ur of Chaldea is a designation to mean southern Ur, where the Persian Gulf is located. Now, Ur in Akkadian means either country or city. It's just a very generic term. In fact, ironically, Stephen in Acts 7 gets it correct because he's relying on the Septuagint that translates Ur as country. So the country of the Mesopotamians. Now, where that fire, the fire of the Chaldean myth comes from, is because of people doing what's called a phonetic fallacy. So, for example, yam in English is a food, but yam in Hebrew is water. Obviously, I don't mean the same thing, phonetically speaking. They're two different words.
So this is a mistaken word. This is a wrong interpretation of a word that you can see phonetically should be this, but it's that.
Exactly, but it emerges again in the early 2nd century, all the way to specifically Jerome's Latin Vulgate.
Give the date for that.
4th century.
4th century. So we're still before Islam.
Yes, and also you have. It's a bit more detailed. Basically, Zoroastrian myths in Greek writing that seem to converge with Midrash, Genesis Rabbah, Midrash stuff in the rabbinic period, still before Islam. Now, the point is, someone like Jerome, God bless him, I love Jerome, but he still went out of his way to defend Or equals fire because he assumed the Hebrew word for there as fire. now here's my, as a scientist, here's the litmus test how I would know if Allah was actually the true God or not. Just with a simple example. You know how Muslims say that the Quran is a miracle? He's illiterate.
Right, he's illiterate. How could he write such beautiful poetry?
Right.
Things that no man could have ever thought.
Now, we only discovered cuneiform writings in the 1800s.
Right.
Here is the prime opportunity for Allah to correct the myth and say, you know how sometimes in the Quran it says they say this and they say that, but you have to say this. In other words, you have already Allah correcting them. Well, why don't you, here's your prime opportunity in hindsight of cuneiform scripts 1,800 years, or well, 1,200 years later.
1,200 years later.
So that it would wow us. The Quran goes along with the myth. Specifically, word for word when it says, be cool and be a tranquility, is word for word in the Genesis Rabbah.
Yeah.
All because of Jerome's mistranslation and a few other mistranslations, assuming that Ur is a Hebrew word for fire, and this whole myth came about. Allah should have been, so here's my conclusion. Allah should have done a wonder. Hey Muhammad, tell them this is an Ugaritic word.
That's right, Ugaritic.
Which obviously would have confused them because they had no concept of Ugaritic.
They wouldn't have known what it is,
but
right.
That would have still been a miracle for us.
Right.
Because how would he, there you go.
Then you know that he has something that they would not have understood.
In Surah 3, you have Allah saying this is from the unseen, stories from the unseen.
Right.
Well, again, prime opportunity. No, this fire, this say from the fire is false. Rather, he came from a country. He should have said that, but he doesn't. He goes along with it. So Allah doesn't know the difference between Akkadian and Hebrew and Aramaic.
And God knows every language, does He not? At least your God does.
In fact, the church we just attended, a beautiful scene that I saw is everyone was praying in their own tongue. So they came up one by one, praying in their own tongue. And so we have a God that is Pentecost. Today's Pentecost.
Right, today's Pentecost.
What does Pentecost mean? All the tongues, a variation of tongues. So God can speak to anyone in your own tongue. He's not intimidated by language. He can communicate all because he demonstrated that. Hebrews 1. In the past, in fragmentary ways, God revealed himself, but now in these final days, he's revealed by Son. God spoke Akkadian to Abraham. God spoke Egyptian to Moses. God spoke Aramaic to Daniel. God spoke Greek. You see this development. But Allah is stuck in Arabic.
That's only when was the earliest reference we have for Arabic?
It goes
2nd
back,
century BC, right?
a little bit before from what I've read.
Okay,
we're talking
some say 4th, some say 2nd.
Yeah.
Did people exist before the 4th century?
No.
Yes, they did.
I mean, yes. Yeah.
Moses existed before the 4th century.
Yeah.
So did Abraham, the very guy you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you would have lots of languages.
Right.
If Allah can only speak Arabic, and then before he didn't exist prior to the 4th century.
Right.
There's a problem there.
Yes.
So are you following, folks, what he's saying? He's saying everything we see in these stories, they do not parallel with what we have in the Bible.
Right.
The Bible gets the right man at the right place, doing the right thing at the right time.
Right.
And you can confront him historically because of that. When you ask the same questions of the Quran, and you just use 2 examples there. In every case, these are borrowed stories from other peoples in other languages, but they get the wrong men doing the wrong thing, and more than that, they don't even fit with science.
No.
And you even get reference to someone like Abram, but they call him Ibrahim.
Yeah.
He should be Abram before he is consecrated by God.
How about just a quick public question? So someone answer. How is Jonah called in the Quran?
Jonah Lomo.
No. What's Jonah's name in the Quran?
What is it in the Quran?
Yunus. Where does Yunus come from?
I assume from Arabic. Is it the Arabic rendering
Well,
of Jonas?
It's a transliteration in Arabic from Greek. Why? Like when we go back to, like say we were in the boat with Jonah, hey Yunus,
Right.
that would make no sense. It's a Septuagint translation.
Okay, so it goes to the Greek.
Yeah.
So what's your point?
But that's the Quran's version of Jonah is he's thinking Jonah is a Greek guy, a Greek name. But that's not Jonah's original name.
The same thing with Issa.
Yes.
What's Issa?
Jesus.
Yeah, but that's not Arabic.
I know.
So what is it?
Well, the
It's
latest-
Syriac.
Yeah.
It's the Syriac
Yeah.
rendering. So what's the name for Jesus in Arabic?
Yesu.
Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Yeshua. Why is it the Quran doesn't know that? Or whoever wrote the Quran doesn't know that? Or why did not Allah of the Quran, if he gave it down, if he sent it down to a man named Muhammad, why did he not make that distinction?
What about the Sephardic scripts that have been recently discovered, Isa being a ransomer deity, that ironically, now I can argue to Muslims, you have the ransomer throughout the Quran and it's in their face and they don't even see it.
They don't even say it because they don't know that language.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Even Allah doesn't know that language. Folks, can you see why he's done this? As a scientist, he's looking for scientific pinpoints.
Yes.
And you're looking for little tent pegs
Yes.
that say this makes sense in that time with that people and that language.
Yes.
In the case of the Bible, have you found any error like this?
No.
And how many years have we been asking this question of the Bible? Since the 1800s. In Germany, they asked this very question,
Yes.
did they not? In the
yes.
University of Tübingen, this was called textual criticism.
Yes.
This is called redacted criticism. This is called source criticism.
And praise God for that, because the Bible is not afraid, or in this case, if I'm
To be investigated.
If I'm anthropomorphizing the Bible, praise God, we have now the last century worth of biblical critical scholarship, because then the discoveries that came up, things like the Dead Sea Scrolls and so on, and all the, like Egyptology is, in fact, here's another example. Let's go into Egyptology. The Pharaoh drowning.
Right.
Egyptology as a field has ripened only in the last 50 years. I have a very good friend, he's Canadian, he's an Egyptologist from Liverpool.
Give that name one more time.
Egyptologist.
Do you know what that word means, anybody? How do you spell it?
Egyptologist.
Oh, Egyptologist.
Egyptologist.
Oh, you Australians, you don't know how to speak English. It's called Egyptologist.
Egyptologist.
All right, get it right.
All right.
I had no idea who you were talking about.
Right.
That's well known. We know
Yes.
about, Champignon.
Yeah.
He was an Egyptologist.
Yeah.
He was the one that found the Rosetta Stone.
Yes.
He was the one that interpreted so we can know what the hieroglyphics
Exactly.
is. Okay, so
Exactly.
that's not the last century.
Yeah, but the last 50 years, it's ripe. The whole field
It's blown open, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So much so that there is an atheist scholar by the name of Peter Feynman that published, again, Oxford publication, 2021 publication, The Exodus, an Egyptian Story. And in that book, he's an Egyptologist. He argues that, you know what, we actually now need to look at the Exodus story through, more importantly now, yes, we should acknowledge the Exodus story itself. It's an Egyptian story. That's how far they're going with this, and so much so that he's even arguing for a specific day for the Exodus, 1272 BC, specifically on the 16th of July, the 7th year of Ramses II's year of reign. The reason why I bring this up, it's virtually unanimous in scholarship that although there was initially a range of pharaohs from Amenhotep II, if you're talking about a 1446 BC Exodus, all the way down to Meneptah. Remember the famous Meneptah Stela?
The Meneptah Stela, sorry, isn't it right here in the British Museum?
It is.
Right, you can go see it.
Yeah, I want us to check it out.
Go through. Tomorrow we're doing a view. We're looking at it tomorrow, by the way.
Okay. So you have this range. Now, we have the bodies, all right? Now, hands up if you've heard of a French doctor in the 70s called Maurice Bucaille.
I know Maurice Bucaille. I've read his book.
Right.
It's a piece
Supposedly,
of. It's terrible.
Supposedly, he found salt content in Ramses II's body and
Right.
all that stuff. Now, Ramses II passes away in 1213 BC. But Egyptologists like Peter Feynman and David Falk, my good friend from Canada and so on, will argue, and also James Hoffmeyer is a big one, that you have a range between 1275 BC and 1250 BC. Feynman specifically is very specific, 1272. That means Ramses is still alive even after the Exodus. And according to Egyptologists, this is a very important detail. For example, just a quick example, the cartoon.
Don't worry about that. He's going to do that. They're going to try to interrupt you. Ramses the Egyptian.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So the cartoon, the Prince of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt,
You
yeah.
remember the end where Ramses survives the waters
Right.
of the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds. That cartoon again is based on the fact that it's a consensus that the Pharaoh survived, and his long life into his 90s,
Yeah.
where he died hunchback with they believe it's a really bad infection in his tooth. That's what killed him. Anyway, the point is, a long life is a curse.
Right.
And in fact, the Egyptian dynasty, the 19th dynasty that he was in, started to decline because of what happened with respect to the Exodus.
Okay. Yeah, you
So
got
they're
it now.
making the connections there.
They're making the connections.
Now, the Quran is very specific. Not only do you have tafsir that I've read with Ibn Kathir that supposedly when Moses strikes the water with his staff, that's not in the Bible. He doesn't strike the water with his staff. And apparently 12 streams open up. That's anachronistic for the 12 tribes. The 12
Right.
tribes didn't exist at the time.
Right.
And I kid you not, if you read Ibn Kathir's tafsir, windows open in the walls of water so each tribe can look through and see that each tribe is making it through. Meanwhile, Gabriel on the horse is swooping down and stuffing mud in Ramses' mouth so that he stops his shahada, so to speak. And then his body is washed up, it doesn't say where, as a sign to the Israelites that he has passed away.
Yeah.
So, the Pharaoh drowned very explicitly in the Quran. If the Pharaoh did not drown, if it was Ramses II, and if he did not drown as described in the Quran, Allah has made a big fuba
There you go.
with respect to that historical detail.
There you go. Something as simple as that. Just take it to its logical
Yes.
conclusion. But if you're making it up as you go along, you don't know these historical incidents, you're not aware of the fact that the
Stories
real
of the
story is
unseen.
there. Why don't you follow the real story?
Yes.
Why do you think they did follow the real story? Why do you think they used these Mishnahs, these Talmuds, these apocryphal writings to put their stories together?
You mean the Quran?
The Quran itself.
Why do I think that?
Yeah. That's all they had available at that time in Arabic.
Well, I'll give a subjective Christian answer, a more supernatural answer. I believe the Quran, the deity behind the Quran is a chaos monster, to use an ancient Near Eastern idiom or like a nickname. Satan in the Bible is what we call a chaos monster. Leviathan, the behemoth, they're chaos. What's depicted as chaos monsters? They can only introduce chaos, not creativity or having a sense of foresight. Initially, I used to say the Quran is carefully crafted to be an anti-gospel message.
Right.
But a good friend of mine in Australia reminded me of this chaos monster imagery that to carefully craft something means to have a sense of foresight, and only the true God has that foresight, not Satan.
All right.
So the Quran is, I believe, based on my reading so far, what would be the most fine-tuned way to introduce chaos, to forestall the Great Commission, distract people. So in other words, it's silly enough, but there's a silliness to it, but people still fall for it. They're still deceived by it. And I can't think of a better person like Loki in the Marvel universe that is like the Allah of the Quran, where he purposely puts certain things that you and I would know as false, but to the uninitiated, they just fall for it.
Okay, now that's one theory. The
Yeah.
other theory, and this is what the textual historians say,
Okay.
is the reason why all these stories are in the Bible, are in the Quran, and not the ones from the Bible itself, was primarily because the Bible really was not translated into Arabic until 868. That's the 9th century.
Right.
When did Muhammad die? If he wrote the Quran, I don't believe he did.
Yeah.
632.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
you got another 3 centuries before they could even read the Bible in their original tongue.
Right.
So what did they have available? They had these folk tales.
Yeah.
They had these Mishnahs, these Talmuds, these sectarian writings. Look at all the references to Jesus in the Quran.
And my model, by the way, what I just said from a more supernatural point of view, notice I didn't put a date to that. It could be in the connection of what Jay is saying in regards to when it was done, you know, to like we were talking about 400 years after.
Well, be careful because the manuscripts start to begin to appear in 705. So that's the 8th century. But they're not complete.
Yes.
The most complete manuscript is the Topkapi. That could be 8th, it could be 9th. There's still discussion on that.
Right.
But that's still 100 to 200 years after, if Muhammad even exists.
Right.
I don't believe he did. You may do. But we're not going to argue that right
I'm
now.
on the fence.
Okay.
I'm starting to be convinced that he may not have.
We'll get you off the fence pretty quick. Now, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
So basically what you're saying is, when you look at these stories in the Quran, if only the author of the Quran, you might believe it's Muhammad, I don't believe it had anything to do with Muhammad. I think it was probably a committee that put it together over a period of probably 100, 200, maybe even 300 years. Whoever was the people that put it together, they didn't have access to the Bible, did they?
No.
Which is the most accurate account for all these events.
But yet, ironically, it says, go to the Torah and Injil. Now what's the Torah and the Injil?
Well,
I'm arguing it's the first 5 centuries of what it assumes to be the Torah, but rather rabbinic Talmudic text.
There you go.
What assumes to be the Injil is the apocryphal Gnostic text.
The only Torah, and you're looking at chapter 10, verse 94, and chapter 21, verse 7. If you have any question, go to the people of the book, because they have the Torah in the Injil. But the Torah you're talking about is what they had at that time. And what they had at that time in Arabic were all these folk tales.
And Surah 16, in a very interesting third-person schizophrenic way, Surah 16 has Allah telling Muhammad, they accuse you that you received this from a human.
Which is exactly where they got it from.
And like, no. Like in the whole context of abrogation, in that same context, I think it's ayah 101
16101
to 105, thereabouts.
That's that which we give something better.
And
that which we give Mansuk, we give something better, nothing.
throws-
Why is it that God has to change his mind, even in the scripture?
Right.
Does God do that in the Bible?
No.
But he does it in the Quran.
He's not the author of confusion.
He's not the author of confusion.
Can I share one more?
You want to hear one more? Yes, they want to hear one more. Go ahead.
One more from a scientific context. In Surah 9, you have Allah, I forget the ayah, but you'll have to go into Surah 9. I think it's halfway through Surah 9. You have Allah saying, I've created 12 months. Do not add an extra month. Are you familiar with that one?
I am. But where are you going to go with this?
Okay, here's the irony. If you're following what's called a lunar calendar of either 354 days, or sometimes it can extend to 364 days if you're trying to combine what's called a lunisolar calendar. The point is, well before, the 6th, 7th century, so to speak, you already have
Did you get my Bible out of there?
Out of that. To accommodate 365 days. How interesting that you have Allah saying that it's superstitious to add that intercalated month, that everyone before, the Greeks, even the Christians, even Qumran Jews before Jesus, to make sure that time is in a regular manner, because they knew 365. Enoch's age gives you that clue that they knew of 365 days in a year. But Allah goes, no, that's superstitious. Don't do that. And now we have, Ramadan and all these.
It keeps moving up about 11 days a year.
That follows a lunar calendar and it's totally out of sync.
Totally out of sync.
Why is Allah saying that at the Big Bang there's 12 months in a year with respect to 30 days per month? That makes no sense. Allah doesn't know. Okay, let me say this. Allah doesn't know that when the moon formed 4.4 billion years ago, Earth's rotation rate was 2.5 hours per day.
Yeah, you're getting really technical now. I think you're losing some people.
But
Keep it simple.
this will make a point.
We all have 8th grade education here. That's all we're good with.
Earth originally. This is now what the science says. I could have a debate with Allah right now about this.
You'd win it. From everything you've said right now, you'd win it. He's got so many things wrong. How many things have you got wrong? I know you want to finish this up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, finish it.
Okay, let me just word vomit the science. It's recorded. You can check me out on this. Earth initially, proto-Earth, was slightly larger than our present Earth. We have a rogue planet. So Earth. Okay, let me give the age of the Earth.
No, you've got to finish this.
Okay,
enough.
all right, okay.
Finish what you're saying.
All right, okay.
We don't want another one.
Okay, the point is, the Earth-Moon dynamical system, as the Moon spirals away after that collision event, it acts as a gravitational block that slows down Earth's rotation. So in Australia, we have the Great Barrier Reef. When we look at the Great Barrier Reef, 200 million years ago, it was around 21 hours in the day. Now it's 24 hours, and a couple 100 million years from now, it'll be 25 hours. But Allah says it's exactly 12 months, 30 days.
Yeah, he's got that wrong again.
Back at the start, he should have known better.
Should have known if he was Allah. Okay, real quickly,
Yes.
what were the examples you gave? You gave 3 examples. Number 1,
Adam and Iblis in heaven.
in heaven. Number 2,
The oven. with
the
blood.
oven in the Masjid al-Haram.
Yes.
Number 3,
Abraham and the fire.
in the fire. That's also Iblis.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are 3
And Pharaoh
in the Pharaoh.
drowning.
So you did 4 examples
And now
in every.
Allah's science getting it wrong.
And okay,
Yeah.
let's say
Yeah,
5.
yeah.
So you did 5 examples where in every case Allah gets it wrong. As a scientist, which you are, you see scientifically in every case Allah gets it wrong. Have you found this problem in the Bible?
No.
You're sure you've not found this problem? Have they investigated this in the Bible?
Yes.
Have they looked at the textual correction? Have they looked at the scientific problem? Have they looked as well as you have said what you have done in the Quran?
Yes.
Absolutely. For 200
Yes.
years, haven't they
Yes.
been looking?
Yes.
For 200 years, they've been investigating this book.
And not just that, we have the rich resources of ancient Near Eastern literature, cuneiform texts, that showcase a cultural memory when it comes to things like Adam, Noah, the flood, Abraham. But it actually agrees with the biblical account because guess what? Specific loan words like or showcases an actual preservation of memory with respect to these events. Genesis 14 has the kings of Mesopotamia with very Mesopotamian names. You can't make
Right
that-
man
you can't-
at the right place.
You can't make that up in
You can't
Hebrew.
make that up.
But the
We
Quran-
don't have a Haman way down in Egypt.
Yeah.
Our Haman is where he
what's
belongs.
Haman? Or what's that-
He's in Persia.
What's that
What's he doing in Egypt in the Quran?
What's a Samaritan doing in Egypt?
That's right, a Samiti.
Yeah.
What's he doing
Yeah.
there? So can you see, and what's Samiti, what is Samaritan
Yeah.
doing at the time of
Yeah.
Moses, when you can't have had the Samaritan until the 6th century
Yes.
when he was created by
Yes.
Sargon II.
Yes.
So all of these historical
And
anachronisms
Jonah called Eunice in Greek.
in Greek, over and over again the Quran gets it wrong.
Right.
When you apply the same test to these 2 books,
Right.
which book comes out on top?
The Bible.
The Bible! Thank God for the Bible. And which book comes out on the bottom?
The Quran.
The Quran, every
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
So you did it scientifically,
Yes.
you could do it textually, and you could certainly do it historically.
Right.
And in every case, the Bible comes out on top.
And guess what, guys?
Is that another scientific miracle in the Quran?
Let me just say this. I'm a scientist first, not a theologian or, an arts or humanities.
A historian arrest.
You're right. But I can still do that with respect to the Bible, which means that the wealth and richness of the biblical scholarship, if I can do that, all of you can do that.
Jesus! Who is the King of Kings?
Jesus!
Who is the Lord of Lords?
Jesus!
Who is God in heaven?
Jesus!
Who is God on earth?
Jesus!
Who died on the cross?
Jesus!
Who then rose again?
Jesus!
Who now is in heaven?
Jesus!
Who waits for you and me?
Jesus!
What's his name?
Jesus!
Can't hear you.
Jesus!
Jesus!
One more. Wait, the Q gospel.
Oh, no.
Okay.
We got to go down now.
Okay.
And let's give him a hand. Rob from Australia.